In the misty forests of Tasmania, there's a legend that refuses to die. People whisper of a creature that stalks the underbrush with a dog-like body, striped flanks, and an eerie, yawn-like gape. Locals call it the Tassie tiger. Officially, it's the Thylacine, Thylacinus cynocephalus, the so-called marsupial wolf. The last confirmed one died in a zoo in 1936. But for decades since, strange sightings, blurry footage, and mysterious footprints have kept the hope alive. Could it still exist? Or are we just chasing shadows? This is the story of the Tasmanian tiger, its rise, fall, and the astonishing efforts to bring it back. The thylacine wasn't a tiger and it wasn't a wolf. It was a marsupial predator, part of a family that once roamed across Australia and New Guinea. And what made it so strange was its eerie resemblance to dogs and wolves, despite being only distantly related, a textbook case of convergent evolution. From its head shape to its hunting style, the thylacine evolved features similar to placental predators despite being a pouch-bearing marsupial. It had powerful jaws that could open nearly 80 degrees, stiff tails like kangaroos, and stripes on its lower back, hence the nickname Tasmanian Tiger. Adult thylacines were about the size of a medium dog, weighing 15 to 30 kilograms, with short, sandy brown fur and a stiff, gliding gait. Unlike wolves or big cats, thylacines were probably ambush hunters, more active at night, preying on kangaroos, wallabies, and small mammals. They hunted alone or in pairs and were thought to be relatively shy, avoiding human contact. Fossils show they once roamed all over Australia, but by the time Europeans arrived, they had vanished from the mainland. Only Tasmania, with its isolated forests and lack of dingoes, remained a safe haven. The arrival of European settlers in Tasmania was catastrophic for the thylacine. Farmers brought sheep, cattle, and dogs along with rifles and fear. Thylacines were blamed for livestock deaths, whether the evidence was clear or not. The government responded with bounties: £1 for every adult thylacine killed, 10 shillings for a pup. Over 2,000 bounties were paid out between 1888 and 1909 alone. Combined with habitat loss and introduced diseases, possibly canine distemper, the population crashed. By the early 20th century, the thylacine was rarely seen. In 1933, a lone male was captured and sent to Hobart Zoo. Named Benjamin, though we don't actually know its sex for sure, this last known thylacine paced its concrete enclosure until it died on September 7, 1936, locked out of its shelter on a cold night. Tragically, the species was granted official protection just 2 months earlier. Extinction by design, a combination of fear, misunderstanding, and slow bureaucracy had wiped out an entire lineage of predators. But the thylacine story didn't end in 1936. In the years that followed, strange reports began to surface. Bushwalkers, farmers, and even scientists claimed to have seen the elusive striped predator in the wild. Eyewitnesses described dog-sized creatures with stiff tails, odd movements, and stripes that faded into the undergrowth. Some encounters were fleeting, others lasted minutes. There were even photographs and video clips. Most were blurry, some were obvious hoaxes. But a few were harder to explain. In 1982, a wildlife ranger named Hans Narding reported spotting a thylacine in northwestern Tasmania. His credentials gave the sighting more weight, but no physical evidence followed. Over the decades, sightings have been reported in remote parts of Tasmania and even mainland Australia, where the animal was believed to have gone extinct over 2,000 years ago. Could the thylacine have survived, hidden in Tasmania's dense, uncharted wilderness? Or are these just cases of mistaken identity, feral dogs, foxes, or wishful thinking? Cryptozoologists, thrill seekers, and serious researchers have all tried to find out. In the early 2000s, the idea of de-extincting the Tasmanian tiger leapt from sci-fi into science. Australian scientists at the Australian Museum announced they were attempting to clone a thylacine using DNA extracted from preserved specimens, specifically a thylacine pup in a jar of alcohol. It was a bold, headline-grabbing move. But it also turned out to be much harder than anticipated. The DNA was too degraded. The project was eventually shelved. Still, the dream lived on. As gene editing technologies like CRISPR advanced, researchers began to believe that de-extinction might actually be possible, not by cloning a perfect thylacine, but by editing the genome of a close living relative, like the numbat or dunnart, to resemble the thylacine. This isn't like Jurassic Park, it's more like genomic recreation. In 2022, a startup called Colossal Biosciences teamed up with scientists at the University of Melbourne to launch a new de-extinction project. Their goal? Bring back the thylacine within the next decade. They're using advanced stem cell research, gene sequencing, and artificial womb technology to slowly reconstruct the creature, gene by gene. But even if they succeed in making a thylacine-like organism, big questions remain. Where would it live? How would it behave? And ethically, should we bring it back? Is this scientific redemption? Or a distraction from conserving the species we still have? So why do we care so much about the Tasmanian tiger? It wasn't the biggest predator. It wasn't particularly famous in its own time. Yet it has become a kind of ghost, one that walks the line between myth and memory, science and hope. Part of it is the guilt. Humans caused its extinction in a very clear, preventable way. And unlike mammoths or dodos, the thylacine vanished recently, within living memory. There's something haunting about watching footage of Benjamin pacing in his cage just years before the world changed forever. Part of it is the mystery. The sightings keep coming, even if no one has produced a body or definitive proof. We want to believe it's still out there. Because if it is, then maybe extinction isn't always forever. Maybe the world still has surprises. And part of it is the narrative. The thylacine is a perfect symbol for everything we fear about ecological loss and everything we hope for in technological salvation. It's a story of what happens when we push too hard, and what might happen if we try to undo the damage. Whether the Tasmanian tiger is gone for good or still hiding in the shadows, one thing's for sure: it's not forgotten. Its story echoes through science labs, wilderness trails, and late-night campfire tales. It's a lesson in conservation, a test for technology, and a haunting reminder of what we've lost and might someday find again. Because some animals go extinct, others become legend, and a few live in both worlds.